Hello, good morning. Um, I made a post on YouTube, as I often do in my community section, to introduce topics that I have on my mind, and my last video was about personal individuation of individuals using the mythological background stories of important figures inside the collective subconsciousness of mankind, to use the concepts that Carl Gustav Jung created. Um, yeah, using Dionysos and Ariadne, Orpheus and Eurydice, and Jesus and Maria Magdalene. While Orpheus represents a transformation from Dionysus, who is unconscious, innocent, and not reflected, not being able to take responsibility for anything he does, as an untamed, proto-conscious state of humanity or personal psychic condition. He's the figure that is in the transformation from this archetype to the archetype of Jesus, which is completely conscious and has integrated all drives, desires, and is fully conscious and fully responsible. All of this is only possible through the ability to have blind faith while being willing to sacrifice everything at any time. We see that Orpheus is on the crossroad to this and is not willing to sacrifice part of himself, so he does not decide to follow Eurydice by sacrificing his life into the underworld. He is selfish, he wants her to come back and can't integrate the loss. But if you want to know more about this, watch the video before. Today I want to talk about individuation on a level, on a bigger level, maybe on a global level, or on a level of groups. Yeah, global level. I don't want to say national level, because this is the problem. The problem is to think in nations, and to nations we have, now I'm saying the word, we have attached division based on hateful narrations to nations. And this should not be the case. Nations should be neighbors, loving neighbors, should be parental, friendly, civilized, and moral in their behavior and actions. They should say A and do A. In other words, they should be aligned in their signaling, in their communication, and in their actions, and we are far from that. So I see a global form of individuation that has to be done. This means the climate changes, the experience changes, and this leads to individuals, groups of people, governments having to quickly grow up. So it's like these groups, ethnic groups, nations, governments, citizens, feel abandoned, betrayed, insulted, in some way not respected and heard. In other words, their self-concept is questioned or not respected from the outside, or left alone. Therefore, they have a strong emotional reaction, which could be seen as like a traumatic experience or a crisis. And as a reaction, they have to grow up and integrate this. If they don't, they will spiral and become compulsive, dysregulated, and project shadows on others, which will make the same conflict worse. Let me drink a sip of coffee and explain to you briefly what I mean, because I can only explain this briefly. It's such a complex topic, and I don't want to make a video that goes too long. Hello, everybody. The introduction is already done to this video, but it failed to record further because I was making a small coffee break. Anyway, I'm back and finish the video that I have already finished, but it again did not record. Introduction was done already. Now to the point of the core where I want to talk about individuation on a global level based on the conflicts, and something that that sounds like conspiracy theory when we talk about a new world order. But what I mean is fact-based global conflicts, rising tension, and a change in the power dynamics in the world. We used to live in a monopolized power dynamic and a clear pattern of who is dominant and who comes next and who comes next. But and there was an attempt to maintain this status as long as possible, but obviously there are different forces in the world and parties who escaped this dynamic in different ways, economic or military, in military terms, however they did it. We are facing tensions and a change in this dynamic, which leads to emotional reactions, feelings of betrayal and traumatic experiences, separation, division, and a lot of reflection, projection, deflection, intimidation, repression on a global level in states, governments, and citizens alike. So the thing is this. I tell you about my personal experience as, I had a teacher when I went to school who had a natural authority, and whenever the classroom got heated, he said, let's settle this like civilized Middle Europeans. And at this time, we were living in a culture that was heavily influenced by America. There was MTV, always running on a TV in every house. We were watching all the movies like Kevin Alone at Home, Ghostbusters. We watched the Will Smith movies. Will Smith always saved the world on Independence Day. In I Am Legend against the zombies. I mean, he had to somehow do shadow work as well. I mean, he's married to Jada Pinkett Smith, who triangulated him with a mentally sick person, so I can understand that he had to make the movie I Am Legend. He felt very alone and surrounded by zombies and codependents in a coercive control system, so I can understand this very well. He also made funny movies like Bad Boys. He's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, living the American dream.
And he ended up in a family, in a broken family, where the selfishness of the parents led Jaden, his son, to at some point wanting to divorce from his family. He wanted to um, get legally free from the influence of his parents. Imagine that. Because Will Smith projected his desires to make him a copy of himself, another Will Smith, onto him. And Jada is on a healing journey where she claimed herself that she was acting based on self-hate all her life, but she's now on a healing journey, and she wants to, she needs Will Smith to enable her to get the attention and the good roles she needs, and has to undermine his self-confidence by doing funny things to her family. So Will Smith and this whole dream of um, this American dream ended up as a catastrophe. We see this also in connection to the entertainment industry led by Jean Diddy Combs, who will never walk free again because he was involved in these scandals, these freak out parties that are alike the Epstein Island situation, where the whole high ranking politicians are connected to, while the entertainment industry is connected to the freakout parties that are a representation of the deep, foul core of American society and all Western world influenced by it. We see that all our heroes, our idols, like Will Smith and others are like Snoop Dogg, are all connected to this. We can even say, or this is a rather conspiracy, my theory, that people like Tupac might be shaped as scapegoats, even though they were the only ones who saw through this and rejected these codependent structures without a moral core, and therefore these people had to die. Anyway, this is the first thing that happened. It showed that the cultural core is foul, is hollow. There's no moral, there's no ethics, but it is preached that there is moral and ethics. In other words, they can't live by their own rules. And as Jesus would say, first remove the beam out of thine own eye, and then try to remove the splinter out of my eye. And after this cultural and political facade was breaking down by revealing, not even revealing, by still concealing the truth about the Epstein files, it's not released who was really there, and also revealing the truth about the whole Hollywood story with Puff Daddy, aka Jean Diddy Combs, we saw that this all went down the road, went completely down. A lot of people speaking out about this, how frustrating, how highly competitive, how broken all of this is. And the next that follows is on a political level, on a geopolitical level, a change of relations. So once we perceived as Middle Europeans America as a parental figure that we can rely on, but now they retreat in a Machiavellian way. There is a term called Trumpism that is related to Machiavelli, and it means that a parental figure suddenly becomes selfish, detached, emotionally detached, and says, "You know what? You stand on your own. Uh, it's me first," and this leads to betrayal and an identity problem. We get to this probably later, but to individuation. So it can also lead to repression and projection. So if a partner that guided us, guarded us, supported us, um, and respected us, so it's a mutual relationship, suddenly retreats and says, you know what, we were never so close, it's all just business, um, we can easily project our own dependency and inability and impotence on this person and blaming them for our incapability. This means we reject to individuate. So this is at hand for many, many, many nations and countries and groups of people now to grow up and walk on their own feet instead of blaming others, to let them alone. This is the first step of a new way to come back into functioning communication. I also want to point out that we must be very careful, and I'm asking governments now. This is a question to governments. Do you exist to protect and serve yourself? Or do you exist to serve the citizens that elected you and pay for, give you your payroll? We are, the citizens are the employees of the government, okay? But it looks like the term America first, or in other ways, it could be Germany first, whatever country you say, the government says me first. And this, in many cases, means government first, not people first. Think about that. So I'm asking this question to to governments worldwide to align with the people, um, and undergo this journey of individuation together to become less dependent of others. Globalization has many advantages, but globalization also has the problem of creating dependencies that inevitably lead to abuse and coercive control patterns. We also see an echoing theme of identity theft and competition amongst groups of people globally, which means identity should never be competitive. Identity should be accessible for everybody, disregarding their ethnical origins, the color of their eyes or their skin. Identity should always be accessible and um, livable by everyone who is choosing this identity. But identity should not become competitive or excluding, and identity can also not be forced in a way that I choose my identity and then I force others to accept my identity. Okay, I can choose my identity. And I mean, this must be respected by everybody that I choose my identity, but I cannot force others to like praise or worship my identity. Okay, so everybody chooses identity for themselves, and they cannot be stopped. They should not be stopped to do this. And everybody must accept the chosen identity of everybody else. But we can't. But this is where the freedom stops. We cannot force others to worship or praise the identity that we have chosen. That's not possible. They have to respect it, and if they can't respect it, at least ignore it. Ignore us. Be indifferent towards us. Okay, but they can't attack us or exclude us. This leads to problems when they, based on the identity that we choose, um, you know, yeah, see us as as something they have to fight. Now, these global changes in alliances include betrayal and Machiavellistic tendencies. Again, like a parent that suddenly becomes selfish, forces the children to grow up quickly and creates a form of traumatic experience of identity disturbance. And this, on a global level, can shake up the situation very much. Yeah, and it means, as I said before, we now need to remember, everybody needs to remember their own identity and strength and potency and stand up as that, not in a competitive way, but in a secure, calm, in a secure and calm manner. Often the display of, the desperate display of omnipotence or power, or what we call saber rattling. Also, we see it in rhetoric, in the way we use rhetoric in politics, is often a reflection of insecurity. So it's based on the opposite of that, what it shows at. Yeah, to be honest, I feel like, very honest, I'm not happy with the way I shaped this video. I feel like the first original attempt was probably, I was more satisfied with that, but it did not record. I will still upload it and hope I could give you the idea of what I mean. And to wrap it up, the danger and the trap of the current global situation is to reject the message that we get, that we need to become independent and humble at the same time, not try to become competitive in displays of omnipotence, but rather stand in a form of in the true attempt to create non-competitive, diverse identities that can coexist in a supportive manner of brothers and sisters, next to each other, supporting each other. This might sound naive, but there is no other concept than that, in my opinion.